A new year is upon us, so let's position you for financial success in 2026. Welcome to Headlines in Fine Print, the show where we don't just skim the headlines, we dig into the fine print. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and extend the best wishes to you for the new year. I'm Dion Williams, President and CEO of Piedmont Advantage Credit Union, and I'm glad you're here. Just as a reminder, before we get into today's content, we have the show archived on our YouTube channel and Spotify if you'd like to learn more or listen to past episodes. I'd also like to encourage you to follow our channels, like, and share if you're so inclined. With no further ado, let's talk about setting you up for financial success in the new year. Now, what I don't want to do with this episode is rehash our first episode of 2025. So before we get into today's content, let's just do a brief recap on that episode from 2025. You may recall, whether it's finance or fitness, the new year ushers in this opportunity and excitement to start anew and form new habits. So using the gym as an example, think about how full the gym is that first week of January and contrast that to later January or February or March. As the year goes on, the crowds get smaller. We lose that excitement that we brought with us into the first month of the year. Now, our discussion also in last year's initial episode centered around the fact that any day can be day one to implement change. It can be any day of the week. It can be any month of the year. So don't get discouraged if you slip. Get right back up and keep moving forward. And that brings me to today's content, which is designed to channel that positive energy into a workable plan. Now, to do that, we're going to talk about SMART goals. In 1981, a gentleman by the name of George Duran wrote an article that introduced the SMART approach to goal setting. And to this day, it's frequently used in business, but I see application to this in our personal lives as well. So let's explore that in the context of your financial goals for 2026. So first, let's dissect the acronym of SMART. S stands for specific. Goals should be clear and well-defined, not vague. M is measurable. Progress must be trackable with concrete criteria. A is achievable. Goals should be both realistic and attainable. R is realistic. Objectives must be practical and align with your broader priorities. And last but not least, T is time-bound. Goals need a deadline, so there's both urgency and accountability for attaining those goals. So now that we've established what SMART stands for, let's apply that to a New Year's resolution. So let's say that your resolution is to put yourself on track to retire in a certain period of time. And maybe you've been saving for retirement for years, or maybe you haven't even started saving for retirement. It's fine either way. With that in mind, let's jump into the example. So for today's purposes, we're going to say the goal is to retire in 10 years. That's specific, right? That's the S. It's specific and well-defined, but there's one caveat to that. How much money is enough to retire in 10 years? Many of us have an employer-sponsored retirement plan, and they have tools online to help you project what's needed. But otherwise, there are tools online, there's calculators that can help you, or a financial planning professional can help you come up with how much money is enough in retirement. Retiring is a wonderful goal, but be sure to attach a dollar amount so you know you've made it, so to speak. Folks are retiring at younger ages now, so you want to make sure that the money doesn't run out. So that's why it's really important to the time frame, but the dollar amount to go with it. So next with this goal, let's talk about the M, which is measurable. The progress must be trackable with concrete criteria. So your account statement provides a measuring stick for the progress that you're making. Some of the tools I previously referenced can help you model what-if scenarios. Perhaps you set aside all or some of a pay increase into your savings towards that retirement goal. Or perhaps you contribute enough to qualify for the maximum employer match if they offer one. And one final suggestion is paying off debt and, of course, setting a budget where you, and you've heard this before, pay yourself first to make sure you're on track to achieve your goal. Next, let's talk about the A in SMART, which is achievable. It may be a situation where in looking at the dollar amount that you need and what you can do to maximize your savings, 10 years is not enough. And that's no reason for alarm. That's why we go through this exercise. One of the biggest points of discouragement is when one believes that a goal is not achievable. And the person would give up instead of just simply recalibrating the goal. So if it can't be done in 10 years, can it be done in 12? Or will there be opportunities in the next 2 or 3 years that's not there now, in which you can catch up and get back on track to achieve your goal in 10 years? So give yourself some grace and be flexible, because retirement is especially one of those things in which doing something is much, much better than doing nothing, right? So doing something gets you closer, even if it means you're on a 12-year path instead of a 10-year path. So frankly, a lot of folks, for non-monetary reasons, they miss work, they miss the people, and they continue working or seek a new career in retirement. So again, it's about they enjoy the interaction with people and earning a little extra money more so than having to work for a monetary reason. So consider all of that when you're thinking about your retirement goals. Now let's talk about the goal being realistic, which is the R in SMART. And admittedly, there's some overlap between realistic and achievable. So let's draw that distinction. Achievable deals more with the question of, is it possible? Whereas realistic explores whether it makes sense. And I'll use myself as an example here. I have 3 daughters, and all 3 are in college at the moment. So if I wanted to retire, I need to make sure those expenses are covered, and of course, potential future weddings, I have to cover those expenses as well. So does it make sense for me to put all of my eggs in the retirement basket during this period when my expenses are high for education and the potential future weddings that I reference? This stage of life won't last forever, so in a few years, I'll be out of that stage where I can put more towards retirement. So it's not that I stop focusing on retirement, but I do have to dial back for the moment as I see how these competing demands on resources play out. It's definitely a balancing act, and there's not a right or wrong answer. So what's competing for your resources? Is it education expenses? Is it buying a home or maybe making home improvements to an existing home that you own? Or is it paying off debt? The point is to consider and balance competing wants and needs with resources available to ensure that you're setting realistic goals with realistic timelines. And that brings us full circle to the T in SMART, and that's the time-bound goals. Whether it's 10 years or more or less, having the time frame established matters. Human nature is that we function so much better when we have deadlines. It creates urgency and accountability, and it brings goals into focus. The generic goal of wanting to retire sits much differently than I want to retire in 10 years. The time frame puts some urgency and accountability on the action steps that's needed for you to achieve that goal. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to once again wish everyone watching or listening best wishes for this new year. To briefly recap, remember your goals and remember that any date can be day one. When you slip, get right back up and keep moving forward. And last but not least, consider using the SMART goals approach to help you develop and achieve your goals in finances and goals even beyond finances. You can do it. And your credit union's here to help you every step of the way on those financial goals. Thank you so much for tuning in to Headlines in Fine Print. Don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, keep pushing past the headlines and lean into the fine print where the story lives. Have a great day.